Welcome. I thought we would handle this topic podcast style, and I've got chapter markers if you want to skip ahead or skip around.
So let us start with introductions.
Hi, my name is Ashley Austin Morris. I am a stand up comedian, an actress, and a writer, and I teach stand up as well. I teach beginners. So if you are wanting to do stand up, or maybe you are, I actually get a lot of people that are in tech that want to learn how to communicate. Um, and yeah, so that's what I do. A lot of I would say comic curious.
Hi, I'm Kevin Dombrowski. I'm also comedy curious. I'm just a stand-up comedian because I'm not as talented as Ashley. And what I do is I teach beginner to stand up for Laughing Buddha. I've been teaching for them for probably 5 to 6 years. I've really lost count. I started teaching for them because I'm pretty much a career host in New York City. Host most of the top clubs, and as someone that started out as a crowd work guy and then worked his way into a good stand-up comedian, I understand the struggle and the process of starting fresh and being lost and not really knowing what to do. So that's the way that I approach teaching when I do beginner to stand up. It's kind of from a standpoint of look, I've been where you are, and this is, and look at me now, and this is what I've learned along the way to turn it into a career and pay my bills doing this. So you guys are going to learn exactly what I learned when I learn it also. So it starts as a beginner class, and then people start jumping out of the window as it becomes more advanced. I also teach hosting and emceeing, which is bringing structure to the show and teaching young comics how to keep momentum going, how to keep connected with the crowd, pass that connection off from one comic to another, and really how to start a show off correctly and keep it going within format of how it should be. Because if you've ever worked at a showcase club, you know, if one club's off, the rest of the clubs are off. So that's how I started teaching, and then it moved into beginner to stand up. And I'm looking forward to taking Ashley's advanced class soon.
I was just like, oh my gosh, this is riveting. Like that's so yeah.
She fully leaned in.
I
I
did.
know.
I leaned in.
Kevin, do you write the marketing text for the shows? Because
So
that was brilliant.
I do speak a lot at workshops for people looking to get into comedy. So I come in and kind of it's kind of just a preview of what you're in for. It's not an easy class. It's beginner on paper. But I expect as much from beginners as I do from any other person that I work with, and vice versa. You know, we all hold each other accountable of what's good and quality, and pushing us all forward. So I teach from that perspective of basically I've been from absolutely nothing to recording 2 albums, having 2 hours, things of that nature. So I'm really used to pitching people. It's kind of like my circus. Look, we're new in town. Come and join us. One of those things. But I do it a lot. So usually my introductions are horrible because Amy, as you know more than anyone, not even in this chat, but maybe in my life, my disdain for myself. So it's very hard for me to talk about like, hey man, come over here and I'll help you. Cause I'm like, ugh, I wouldn't want me. But from doing it so much, I'm able to kind of pinpoint how the class goes and then advertise it from there. But thank you. I've worked very hard on that one.
I was very impressed with your self-belief in that spiel.
We've all believed it. Yeah.
I was pinching myself under the table the entire time.
And Candi.
Hi, I am Candi Clare, and I am comedy averse. I do not do it. I also do not teach beginners. So I am the booker and head of development for New York Comedy Club. And the class that I do is I do with comics that have been doing it for at least a few years, and it's more of an industry resource class, which is focusing on your tight five. I'm not teaching anyone how to be funny, and where they are in their career and what they can do with it, and understanding basic things like social media, festivals, content, working on the road, next steps, even down to writing packets and things of that nature.
All right, so you've all answered this, I think, a little bit, but let's get into it some more, and I'll start with Ashley again. What is your goal for the students in your class? Like, what do you want them to have achieved or completed or learned by the end?
Yeah, I want them to, I think for me, I want them to learn the selflessness of stand-up comedy. I think so often, and I'm guilty of it myself, and it never goes well, when you go on stage to be like, I need you all to love me and let me know I'm funny. Like, that doesn't work. Like, I want them to know that you are being paid and your job is to bring joy. Like we used to say, like, we work in joy.
We work in joy.
Yeah. And so to really like to bring joy to an audience, that like that is a real job, and you can't go to get your needs met. Now, of course, when people laugh, it does meet your needs. It is this spiritual experience, but that you're going to give a gift, you're not going to get. And I think that's the main thing. And I also, I really try to help them not do porn jokes. That's kind of my mission. Like, just don't talk about porn.
God bless you.
I know. God bless. And so I have since yours is also, you said, it's curious, right? And a lot of it are people who maybe don't necessarily want to go into stand-up. They just want to learn some of those skills. Like, what % of your students would you say end up actually doing stand-up versus taking these skills into their normal life?
Yeah, I would say that it's normally the ones that go into it with that. There's very few surprises. Like, one guy was like, oh, I just killed my pitch at this meeting. And like, that is why he wanted to learn stand-up. I think it's based on like the group chats they all start. I would say it's probably like 50% of the class is now going to open mics, is now, working with each other. Maybe they're going to start a bar show together. And it also gives them that community that I think the pandemic took away a little bit, which is, we all, like Jessica Kirsten says it, comedians will give you most of your work. Like, we are each other's, we are also each other's employers. And so I think the bonds that they make in this class that maybe we all made at open mics 10 years ago these are the people that they're going to be with for the rest of their careers, when they're ready for Kevin's, and then when they're ready for Yankees.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, my people not ready for kids.
No, they are not.
But they will be. But they will be.
Yeah. So Kev, you actually you described a little bit of what your goals for students are already in your intro, but is there anything you'd want to add about either course of, like, what you see as success for the average student?
Yeah, definitely. I have to agree with Ashley. I hammered into my students' head that stand-up, look, the way that I define it is, we do stand-up for us, right? We're stand-up comics for us. It fulfills this desire to entertain people. Whatever your need for doing it is, I love making people laugh. That's why I do it. I genuinely enjoy the laugh. That's why half of my career has only been about just making people laugh. But you do the show for them. Yeah. You're a stand-up comic for yourself, but the show is to entertain people. So by no means will you get up and just do what, let's say, talk about just what you want to talk about, even though it's not entertaining. There's got to be a marriage. You got to find a middle ground there, because you're being paid to entertain people. You're not being paid you want to make a speech and you want to talk about what you want to talk about, then go be a politician. Who, by the way, is held to less standards than comedians.
Right.
So good luck with that. But it's all about the process in my class. It is. It's like a type 5 is great, but at the end of the class, if someone just figures out how to write, how to connect on stage and edit for themselves, And even though that tight 5 might be a good 2 minutes and then figuring out the rest of it, as long as you get that process, that's my goal for you. So my class is never about when you can't teach funny. And I'm sure you're going to get to this, but this is like the most important thing about teaching, because when you had texted us, you said, would you guys mind talking about this? And what I said is, at first, there's this taboo of like, you can't teach comedy, and it's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
You can't teach someone to be funny, but you can take someone's talent of being funny and teach them the skill of writing and performing. We all learn from someone. We all learn from headliners. We all learn from watching other comics. It's the exact same thing. You're just paying for a course and getting it in a 6-week concentrated 3-hour-a-night class. That's just what it is. So it's all about the process. I want you to figure out how to approach writing for yourself within structure. We talk about some philosophy, some some joke theory. I want you to figure out how to connect when you're on stage and be present. And then I want you to put it all together. I want you to throw out something that you think is funny and then figure out, okay, this is funny, but how much funnier can it be? And take that process through everything moving forward. And that's really my biggest goal. And the way that I do that for them is, I think the best advice I ever got was not only like, know why you're funny and why you're not funny, and not only question why when it doesn't work, but question why when it does work.
Yeah.
It's the most valuable lesson, because if you bomb, it's so easy to go, why did I bomb? And you'll correct that and never do that again. But if you kill, 9 out of 10 people are going to go, thank God I just killed. That felt great. Let me try to recreate that. No, ask yourself, why specifically did that work? Because then you can break it down and rebuild it into like so many more intricate levels and keep adding into things that work for yourself. So knowing why it worked is the most important part of all of that. So that's like the kind of running theme throughout my class.
Mhm.
Oh, I like that. That's brilliant.
I would like to take Kevin's class.
I know. I kind of want to take it now
I know.
too.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but to that, when in the first day of my class, I have everybody introduce themselves, and if by chance people laugh, I do stop them and go, "Why was that funny?" Because and I do think that these type of things like ruin entertainment for you for the rest of your life, because you're just going, "Why was that funny?" Why, your whole life, but that is part of it.
That is. So Candi, how about you? So you've obviously got a different cohort of people. What is your sort of goal for someone to take away from the class?
Well, outside of, and I know it's an important piece of your classes as well, as community. I think this is a job that you stand by yourself, right? So it's like you have this mindset, am I doing this alone? But the reality is you're not doing it alone. Like Ashley said, you are getting work from other comedians. So the big thing for me is putting people in a group together that are kind of all at a place where they're getting work and advancing, and they're taking all those other people with them. So the big overall thing for me in that sense is that it is a community, and that these are people I've even watched it happen, have partners that they've created with, like writing things and sketches and stand-up shows that they're producing together. And someone gets hired on a show, and then guess what? They're going to be opening a position for another writer on that show. They're going to go to their pool of people, of comics that they already know. And that's like a big part of it. The other part of that is like, now you're becoming a professional, right? So it's like you have your voice, you are ready to walk into a room. And I want to know that these people are walking into rooms professionally, understanding what it means to work and get paid for that, what that looks like, how to deal with other club bookers, showrunners and producers and fellow comics, and that there's a certain respect that's met with that. So that's like the big thing for me, and that they just have more of a general understanding of what they need to do, instead of kind of running around bumping into each other and not having any idea what they're supposed to do next. That's what I have found. I mean, why I created it was a lot of comics, when they get to like that 3-4 year mark, where they're ready for the next thing, but they don't know how that works or what to do, and how do I even approach something like that. is to kind of give them insight in how to do those things, or at least to go about those things, and also for them to understand that there is no one way. Everybody is different. Everybody's humor is different. Everybody has different wants and needs. You know what I mean? Some people want to be a writer on a show. Some people want to just do stand-up. Some people want to be an actor and a stand-up. So everybody's journey is different, but it's just giving you the tools to understand the basic idea of, okay, I can do this next step based on what I've learned here.
I think that's so key, because that's a conversation I've had over and over with people recently and forever, of that, one, there's no one way, but also when there is no, when there's no like guideposts per se or one path, you are looking around you for advice from wherever you can get it. And those might not be trustworthy sources. They might be leading you in the wrong direction.
Definitely. I have to agree with that, because the last week of my class, it's kind of like, what's the next steps for us? It's like, you've guided us to like this. So we have like a rough draft of like this process. We figured everything out in these short period. So now what do we do from here? And it's a lot of buildup of like, keep building at open mics, look at shows to, when you get material up to the same level it's up to now, then do it in front of an audience, try to find out shows where you can get on, this type of stuff. So I do think like a 1-2 punch like that with Candi's class is very important, because it gives, look, there's becoming a comic and then there's knowing how to do comedy. Right? So Ashley and I are teaching people how to become comics. We're teaching your mind how to think like a comic thinks. You're going from a civilian, or what are the normies, whatever your version of that is.
I hate the word normie.
I know.
It's like moist.
I know.
No, thank you.
I heard that from a dude from Boston that I know, that's like, he grew up in like the hardcore punk scene in Boston, and anyone that wasn't into that was a normie. So he approaches comedy the same way, and I love that. So you're going from that mind frame into thinking how a comic thinks. Now, great, you know how a comic thinks, but how does your career work?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a missing link. It's too much to throw at people when you're just learning how to make people laugh and learning what's funny and what's not funny. So I do think that's a valuable lesson that's underrated in comedy classes.
Yeah.
Big time. And also, just to say one more thing, with Candi's group, and I tell her this all the time, I can trust those comics. Like I don't think that, because, it's kind of a party vibe at work and you can drink, like, people don't understand that this is a business. And like, the people that go through Candi's class get that. Like, I can't, and listen, I'm not saying that I headline all the time, but when I do, I can see the difference. Like, I will just go, who took Candi's class? Let me pick from there, because I know that if I say you need to be clean, they will be clean. I know that they respect the light. I know that I know that they know what it means to host and feature. And also just this difference of like hosting, I think Kevin and I both mostly host, and it doesn't mean that we're not comedians. It doesn't, like, hosting is not this lower level of comedy. And I think that the people that haven't studied the business in a class like with Candi, they don't know that. And it's so bizarre that they kind of have that respect for it.
It's because of the two different types of systems. When you work the road, you work in as a young comic, as a host, and you're just trying to find your way. So it's like trial by fire. They throw you right into the pit, and you got to figure out your way. So when you look at a showcase host versus a club host, the showcase host is a career host. That's a person that knows what they're doing. They're either trying to break into the main lineup and let's get you going, or it's like, no, this is what this person does for a living because they're very good at it. And I feel like that stigma has fallen the past couple of years, definitely with other comedians. I think with crowd members, it's subsided, but my favorite is like after you host a show, it's Saturday night primetime, and you fucking murder up top, and you're like, oh man, this is top to bottom amazing show, and someone goes, oh, do you do stand up too? And you're like, I'm gonna fucking
it happens all the time.
I'm gonna choke you out on the sidewalk. You just saw me me more than you saw anyone else in the show. What do you? And I'm not even an ego, but it's like, why would you even ask that question? That's crazy.
But I'm always like, do they think that we are like the hostess? Like, here's your table.
Yeah, I know. I mean, as you know, I eavesdrop on audiences as they leave, and I would hear that all the time, and I would just be like, I'm gonna let you handle this. But my least favorite one was, I think it was Katie Boyle was hosting a late show, and the first two comics after her were dudes, and then there was a woman, and someone in the audience yelled out, "Finally, a woman!" And Katie was like, I have been here the whole time. What are you talking about?
That's hilarious. Or the big running joke of like when someone comes up and you go, "Oh, you were my favorite. Oh, you were also good. Hey, how are you?"
Yeah.
And then they just
Hey, I think that happened to you and
Hey.
I mean, my other
so
favorite
funny.
thing too is audience members who cannot tell the difference between two white women and give me the "you were funny too."
They do
Out of
it
like,
all the time.
way.
oh, all the time, because they'll see me having a conversation with a comedian and their brain will be like, well, that just must be someone else was on the show.
Right.
Oh, that must have been that Leah person who I saw. And like, I get Leah Bonham a lot, Lisa Traeger. And then, gosh, there was one person one night who like literally we had nothing in common besides two X chromosomes. Like, I don't know how. Hair is different, height is different, build is different. I was like, how could you think I was one of the people you saw? I know you had drinks, but
that's so funny. There was one time at Gotham, Nathan McIntosh and I were sitting in like the boothette. I love Nate. I can talk to him for hours. Almost no one makes me laugh harder off stage than him. And someone came up and she went, she goes, "You guys were funny and all." And it was like you could hear the ... in her voice. And we just like looked at each other and she goes, "But how come there were so many white people on the show?" And I like fell over laughing. I just go where they pay me.
Yeah.
I go, I don't have any, I didn't know that he was going to be here. I have no control over who else is on this show. And then there's a manager that I like to bust his balls, and I go, "You should go talk to that guy at the front, though, because I'm sure he'll be able to inform you."
oh my
Well,
god.
do you remember, Amy, when somebody was like, I think I was hosting and somebody like asked me for a drink and Amy just in. It was like, she can't help you.
Like, my new merch line are t-shirts that say, "She can't help you, sir."
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because it's funny though too, because I've noticed it more with women comics, and I think there's some sexism there, but audience members coming up to often the host, again, do they not understand you're a comedian, not a staff person, even though you host straddles that line in a sense.
Sure.
But yeah, asking about drinks, where's the bathroom, why are there was another one, guy came up to Lindsay to say he didn't like some other comics crowd work and he needed to speak to her about it. I don't even think she was on the show. I think she was just coming out of the green room.
I've got Aim, I've got the best. I was in North Carolina doing a weekend, and it was Sunday. It was a Thursday through Sunday. So this is the 6th show. I just happened to have a black t-shirt on when I walked in the club, and someone told me I was late for the staff meeting. It was the 6th show of the weekend. You saw me the entire weekend. And they were like, "Are you the new guy? The staff meeting's this?" I was like, "Come on, man."
To be fair, it's like that thing of when you see your barista in the wild and your brain can't quite figure out where you know them from. You were out of context. They only knew you. They're face blind. They only knew you when you're on stage.
I've had a couple of different comics, and I'm not going to name names, Phil Duckett and Andy Haynes, who have said to me, "Oh, are you doing a spot tonight?" And I was like, "I'm not, but I know that you are because I put you there."
Oh, it's hilarious.
Crazy.
Wow.
I will say, Candi, sometimes Candi is so funny that I get like anger that she's not a stand-up. It like makes no sense.
Yeah,
it's true. Candi is tremendously funny.
Probably
the funniest one in our group chat.
We talked to we were talking with Khalees, and Khalees was saying that, and I was like, I wasn't abused, so it's like I don't have like a need for constant like attention.
Not getting a doodle for her diddle.
That's true. That's true. Although Amy and I have a running text about adding to her type 5 from when
That's
she
true.
used to do comedy.
That's right.
There's every now and then. What was it? It was
5
like,
minutes of hack.
Yeah, the conversation started with plastic straws, and we would go back and forth over what topic you would be covering at an open mic right now, and what it would be.
Yeah, like, because you know how if you see a lot of younger comedians developing, like Candi and I do, and you guys probably do hosting as well, and clearly from your classes, but there will be those trends, right? There's the I call it, the hack 5 of at one point everyone was doing turtles and plastic straws, and then everyone was doing transgender bathrooms. And Candi and I had one night that was just all about small Asian dicks for some reason.
Every single one.
I was like,
I've apologized about that.
I was like, this feels like something from the 80s. I didn't know this was making a comeback.
Yeah,
that's actually that's week 3 of my course is small Asian dicks.
Guys,
guys, to an Asian.
But it's true. When comics start, there's a shock value element, which is like, if I say something shocking, then that's funny, right? Because it's outside of my comfort zone. So that's like how everyone starts. And to be fair, and I know that you've seen this, you have to do it. Like it's kind of like a rite of passage. It's like you have to go through that, have that experience with an audience where it's you're getting reactions that aren't reacting to a joke. They're reacting to like being jarred, you know what I mean? Uncomfortable, if you will.
Yeah, the discomfort.
And so it's something you have to do to understand that energy and that relationship with the audience, and like on what it means, and reading social cues, which a lot of you cannot. So
I mean, I think that's an interesting
hard
thing.
eye contact.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's an interesting thing to now because of social media. And someone recently described it as, it's like it used to be you go to middle school and then you go to high school and then you go to college. So you're mostly around people at the same level, right?
Right.
Where now, because of social media, you are constantly surrounded by kindergartners, even when you're a senior in high school, and vice versa. So I think a lot of comics lose sight of that like you're going to be terrible for 2 years. That's just it's just gonna, I mean, not terrible, whatever, but you do have to work through the stages. The only way out is through, and you're not going to be Andrew Schultz in 6 months, no matter what you do.
Right. There's DF Sweetler at the comic strip gave me the first piece of advice that really stuck with me. Quit. No, he told me. No, I was doing one of those bits. I think I remember my first porn bit. It was something about watching porn on the 3D TV or something like that. And DF Sweetler came up to me after the show, and all he said was, "You're funnier than what you're writing." Or no, I'm sorry. He goes, "You're smarter than what you're writing." And he was like, "You're dumbing yourself down, and you need to be smarter. You need to be as smart as you are on stage." And I didn't even know him. Like, we really never even had a conversation. He got that from a 5-minute set of just like watching me on stage. And he was like, "You're too good for what you're doing." And it stuck with me. And I don't write anything down. I have trouble. I overwrite for myself. My marriage of comedy has to be an idea and what the funny part is. And then I let myself get there on stage. I let the crowd work part of me, or that guy, the interactive person on stage, take over on stage, and I talk efficiently until the joke is formed, and then it's the same joke every time. That's how I write. And so, which is another way that I teach, by the way. You could be someone that writes every single word down. That's fine, but be able to be present in the room and figure out what makes you, and let that dominate how you perform. And so for me, it was the starting of figuring out how to write. And I remember like physically sitting at this desk and being like, what is a better punchline than what I would just think of right away? And that really set me forward. And like, as better material came out, it wouldn't just be settling on the first one. It would be like, what's different? What am I not thinking of? I need to extract information that doesn't just pour out of me because I'm surrounded by college people, and then figure out how to punch up from there until you figure out what works for you and what you want to talk about and how you talk and all that stuff. But that was so important for me, was hearing someone be like, you are making yourself sound stupid. And it was like, oh, okay.
I had that interaction quite recently, and Amy knows about it. So there was a girl that took my class, I think, towards the end of last year. And it was, again, someone that's been doing it for a few years, knew what worked for her, produced shows, everybody knows her. And it was like kind of the last day where they were running what they were going to be doing for the showcase. And I pointed out to her, I'm like, you have the jokes that we were working on workshopping that you're not using for this part, that are very smart, right? So a very similar conversation of like, you're a lot smarter and you're taking a low-hanging fruit of what is like kind of banging on your stomach and what I mean, this caricature of yourself, instead of actually really leaning into who you are and what you're capable of doing. And she emailed me and talked to her the next day, and she opted out of doing the showcase because she wanted to go back and work on the things like those jokes and like really lean into the smarter stuff and the newer stuff. And when she came back and Amy was there for the audition, she crushed.
Yeah.
And now I have her working all over the place. Like,
so good.
I'm
like
actually
having
gonna. That brings me to a question, which is, if you were advising a younger comedian, a comedian at whatever level it would be, whether it's beginner, intermediate, 4 or 5 years in, whatever, what are like either red flags to look for or whatever the opposite of a red flag, like signs to look for when you're choosing a class to make sure it's going to be a good fit and also that it's just, legit?
I mean, I would say for me, when it comes to like that part of being that phase of comedy, almost everybody is because they knew somebody else. It's like at that level, you should know who I am. Like, I mean, you should know, but like, you should know, like, that because you're part of the group of people that have done it or gone through it or are aware of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest recommendation I could say is to other people that have done the class. Like, obviously it's a bit quite different when you're first starting out because you are looking for different things. And I'll let you guys speak to how you stand out that way. But for me, it's like, again, it leans into the community piece, which is so-and-so knows, or so-and-so took one of Ashley's or Kevin classes, right? And so they know about me from that. Like, so there's definitely different levels going through, and different clubs and different combinations of information, right? So taking a beginner comedy class is quite different than taking one that's just strictly on writing packets, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really kind of, what is it you really want to do? What is it you want to learn right now?
Yeah, I think for me, it's being taught by someone with boots in the dirt.
That's what I was gonna say.
I think I think there's a lot of people that are coasting off of, and this is so funny, I never thought I'd be this guy, but like I am. I just think there's a lot of people that are coasting off of the work that they did in the past and earning a paycheck to teach people what they think they know. And the problem is the same reason that comics from the 80s, unless they update with the times, just flame out or keep doing the same set for 30 fucking years, is because comedy changes, society changes. Comedy, stand-up is the complete opposite of improv. And I make fun of everyone in my class that takes improv first because it's very happy and smiley, and it's yes and stand-up is no but. It's the complete opposite of it. We're natural contrarians and of society and just how people think. We think the other way. People pay to hear us talk about our perspective. And I'm not saying that from a place of ego. I'm saying we're fucked up and think differently than everyone else. And people want to hear that. And so when you take a class from someone that's not in it now, they have no idea what's going on. It's the same thing like you listening to an article someone wrote about being offended by someone's act that wasn't even in the club. we're on the front lines every night. We know what works in clubs. We know what people like to laugh at, what people are offended at, what we push people on purpose for to bring them back to prove a point. We know what works. Don't tell me what I can and can't joke about. I know what works. I'm going up every night doing it. So it's the same thing in terms of the class, which is really like my ultimate, and I don't want to say selling point because I don't believe in selling myself. I believe in mentoring comics that take my class. That's my ultimate thing I can offer you is I'm in it every single night, not only as a stand-up, but as a host. I'm the first person that you see on a show. I set the tone for that show. Like, who better to teach you how to relate to people or connect with people than someone that's in it every day, as opposed to someone that was like, yeah, I'm not even going to tell you a name, but I was filming something. I was filming a set for something. And this person came up to me and offered me the hackiest punchline. Aim, this would have been in your Hack 5 in 1992.
I am right here, Kevin.
This was what year were you born? So they offered me this like awful, god-awful punchline, and I was like toiling over, this is the last joke I needed for this tape. And I was just defeated because this set went horrible. It was like the camera fell on its side. Like everything that could happen happened. And I'm just like fucking throwing a camera in this bag. And this person came up and go, can I tell you what the punchline to that is? And I just looked up, and it was the worst thing I've ever heard in my, like, I would rather watch you kill someone in my family than hear that joke again. And then I go, what are you talking about? I was just like not in the mood. I go, what are you talking about? And the person goes, well, look, who am I? I just only had my own show in the 80s. I don't know anything. And I just like, I was like, I have to get out of here. I have to do something else with my life. And that's what I think the benefit is like, you got to learn from someone that's in it. You got to learn from someone that knows what they're doing, that's hitting the ground every night and seeing the industry change, because how crowds are now is not how they were pre-pandemic. Okay. And we're only talking a span of 2.5 years here. Mm-hmm. You're talking overly offended to nothing at all, to being happy to be out, but also being now this like added over caution of the times of being out in public together. It's a completely different dynamic than it was. Now,
and the opposite of people who have also, the audience has lost all social cues. And
right.
They're like feral children now.
100%. So if you learn from someone that never did comedy post-pandemic, you're not learning from someone that's teaching you valuable lessons that we've all picked up along the way. And again, this is not a selling point. I'm really passionate about like making sure that young comics that want this advice and mentorship are getting it from the right place. And I think that's what sets active classes apart.
All right, I have a pin. Ashley, was there anything you wanted to add? You just seem to be like, yes, of what Kevin was saying.
Oh, no, I feel like the only thing
like red
I
flags
wanted to add was like forever ago. But yeah, I couldn't agree more that it's cruel. I mean, even because I went to acting conservatory, I started as an actor, and the good conservatories have professors that are professional actors currently acting. Mm-hmm. For the exact same reasons that Kevin said, because it's just crucial. And I think as far as the writing goes, when the person Candi and Kevin were talking about, writing something that's more dumb, that's not the way you say it, then you are.
Yeah, it is.
I try to always tell.
You're more smart than that.
You are
not. More, thank you. I try to always tell my students, like, use your power for good, not evil. Like, the same brain that wrote a penis joke can write a really good joke about something. Like, so it's like, and then like what Kevin was saying is like, what's the next thing? So in your mind, like, what's the thing right past that easy punchline? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, okay, I don't know, I'm going to talk and there might be a question at the end, or maybe I'll just stop talking and you guys talk. But I kind of want to tie together like that and some of the things Kevin was saying with what Candi was talking about with like doing the low hanging fruit. And I think that there is and community. Ooh, I'm tying all of it together, you guys. but I do think that like you'll see a thing sometimes happen where a clique will form where everyone's doing the low-hanging fruit
Yeah.
and they're all encouraging each other and nobody's really growing. I guess maybe my question is, do you have any tips for people of how to watch out for that, to get out of that kind of a thing?
Yeah, I think it's got to be perspective. You got to find a unique perspective. If you're going to do something that's been done a million times over, it's got to be unique to you. There's got to be a unique spin to it. Look, I just recorded an album on paper about being a father. Almost maybe 10 to 15 minutes of it maybe is about my actual daughter. The rest of it is my perspective of the stages of being a father, new father, what I think is wrong, my personal struggle with it, societally, the times we're living in, what's tough about it, my first experience as it, the craziest thing I've seen in it, what I think I'll be good at. These are all different perspectives on paper. So if you look at my album, or if you look at what I write or tweet or in a set, you could say, oh, well, this guy talks about his kid a lot. Yeah, sure, I do. But are you looking at what the perspective is? It's all unique takes on certain situations, and it's all personal experience of that. So there are different layers of that. So that's what you have to do for these jokes. You know, like I know I'm not, reinventing the wheel here with what I talk about, but what I'm really good about is explaining my perspective, which is different than most people, to you, so you can feel how I feel in that situation. And that's valuable when you go into, how many people had a surviving Neverland and R. Kelly joke? And I think the best ones that I heard, Adrian Appalucci had an incredible one. Andrew Schultz had an incredible one. There was one other comic, I forget, that had a really good one, but everyone's got, if you're biting from the same societal apples, you got to have your own experience or your own perspective of it that makes it unique, or something that flips it completely on its head, that it's like, it's not even actually about that. You're just mentioning that subject for people to grasp onto. So that's what I would say. I figure out what worked for you, and then approach, I guess, those common topics from that perspective.
And trust your instincts. Like if you're with a group of people, you're like, this doesn't feel right. Or a group of people that seem to know how the inner workings of all getting booked at clubs and all these shows is supposed to work, but they're just at open mics. Like, trust that they don't probably know the answers to those questions. And, yes, there is a level of high school years that come with this, where you're at different levels in comedy, and these are the people that you kind of move up with, and that's 100% the case. Amy and I even have our own classes that we kind of came up with, right?
Yeah.
So, but you will get to see who is doing other things, who's saying something that would be different than the norm from your group. So it's like, just like you said, be open to hearing other options, hearing other styles of comedy, really be watching and seeing when you're in that stage where you are kind of trying to figure out what your perspective is going to be and what your voice is. I still find even comics a few years in, when we're working together and they're talking about, I ask a lot of questions, right? So they'll bring up something in their set. So I'll start tapping to other questions. Like one was a professional gymnast and didn't think that would be interesting, right? So it's like, but why isn't that? Like, oh, I guess I just never thought about it. So it's just like tapping into certain things. Also, and I'm sure you found this, Kevin, sometimes you have a baby, or you get married, or you get divorced. You're not ready to talk about that yet on stage. Like, you kind of have to live through, process, and go through those things before you're ready to put pen to paper and get up and do it in front of an audience. Yeah. So it's like allowing that to be okay as well. You know what I mean? So
can I tell you,
people that are divorced that are still doing their married material.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they just haven't, and they will move to that point. It's just like following their instincts for that,
I'm taking notes.
Yeah. I don't want to jump Ashley here, but I have a great example of what Candi just said. I've talked about it occasionally on podcasts. I have like this rare muscle disease that I don't talk about a lot, because it just It's life altering. It's not really life threatening or anything like that. When I overexert myself physically, the muscles in my body break down. I got it when I was 21. I collapsed on a baseball field, and the second half of my life has been about adjusting how I live and knowing what my limitations are. Because the first half I had no limitations. It's not a strength thing. It's not an inherent muscle thing. The way that doctors describe it is it's you have a car that's in reasonable shape and then it runs out of gas. And that's what my body does. So it's not a body. It's like my body can't convert something and I shut down. I don't know how to talk about it on stage without feeling weak. I've done it a couple of times. I've tried to. I've done it on the road, and people come up to me afterwards. Usually over the hill fucking football players will come up and shake my hand and be like, "Hope that wasn't too tough." And it's like, let me tell you something. You have 2 minutes to outlast me. If I don't knock you out within this 2 minutes, you'll probably win. But you better be ready to defend yourself, because for those 2 minutes, you're going to get the wrath of God on you for how I feel. I don't like how people approach me after shows. They look at me differently than if they didn't know it. And you wouldn't know I have this if you just looked at me. So that's an example. I bring that in. I talk about this too, is like, there's some things I don't know how to make that funny. I think at some point I should talk about it because I'm honest about everything else I talk about on stage. So at some point I should. I don't know how to make it funny. I don't know. To me, it's not funny. There's nothing to process there. To me, it sucks when it happens. So it's like I could talk about it, or I could this is just part of my life that I don't share for one reason or another, but I don't bring it on stage because I can't turn that corner in my head to laughing. It's not like when I go down, I'll make all the old man jokes in the world. I'm on a ward with grandparents on, on bed rest. There's funny things that happen, but it's just like I don't know how to talk about it without making myself feel weak, and that's not something that I would prefer to do on stage.
Well, I think too that's interesting. I'm going to tangent a little bit, but Ashley, if you we'll circle back around. I think it's interesting. That's a point of not every thought you have needs to be a joke. Like,
right.
Like, yes, you want to plumb the depths. Yes, you want to think about things that, like being a gymnast that you're like, oh, that's not interesting to me, but it might be interesting to other people.
I know who that is, by the way, Amy and Candy, and he took my class. He's one of my favorites. Go on.
And but yeah, not every thought needs to be a joke, which I think, goes back to low hanging fruit and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
Ashley, did you have thoughts? All of us keep interrupting you. I forget what the question was.
What'd you say? What was the last part?
I forget what the question was.
Well, like I've actually, because I worked with Ashley on her album with Ashley, and before we got to the year of the album happening, there are conversations that we've had. Ashley's gone through stuff in her life as well that she's not ready to bring forth to stage. I think she's getting to a point where she's starting to find all of that. But again, there's so much there, and it doesn't have to happen immediately. That's
totally.
I mean, that's like the whole thing of this career. It is slow and arduous. You know what I mean?
It's so funny you say that, Candy, because that's exactly what I was thinking of. Just like I was raised in a very unconventional way, and I've written a solo show about it, and I have a TV show writing about it. And Candy has worked with me on all of the aspects of it. And for whatever reason, I cannot bring it to stand up. And I've never been able to figure out why. I don't know how to make it funny, even though I think it's funny. I don't know how to explain what it's like to have somebody try to cast a demon out of you at a luau.
Well, but I think though too, that's okay, because there are different media of art, and some things are just more, it's like when you see someone trying to make a movie out of a book, there's so many pitfalls with it, because some things are just better expressed as a book, and some things are better expressed as a movie. Some things are better expressed as a pilot or a solo show, and some things are better expressed as stand-up or a tweet like that. I mean, fuck Twitter now, but you know, there are some things where, you know, you see some people who they start with a tweet and it turns into a good
Yeah.
bit. But then there's other people where sometimes you're watching them try to do a bit and you're like, that's a tweet. Like that's not a full joke. Unless you're
Right.
if you're a one-liner or a very short, you know, setup punch person, great. That you can fit that in. But if that's
Yeah.
not your style, sometimes you won't ever be able to get more from that idea.
Yeah.
It is just
Right.
a tweet. Or, you know, like I love I keep talking about Josh Gondelman's newsletter,
Oh,
which
he's the best.
I
So
enjoy
great.
immensely, which I love his stand-up, obviously, too. I loved when he did Modern Seinfeld, the Twitter account. And I
I didn't know that was him.
yeah, that was Josh
Oh,
Gondelman,
that
and
makes
it was
so much sense.
it was two people, and I totally forget who the other person is, and I feel very bad about it. But like his newsletter, I really enjoy because it's a different, you know, he's not writing jokes out in this newsletter. He is
Right.
writing humorous essays, and he's got one or two books out, which, you know, so he's got that skill developed. But like, I enjoy that medium of that humor, and I wouldn't expect it to translate into jokes.
That's so.
I've made that mistake before too, booking someone because I really like their Twitter, and then I was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah, but I don't know if you feel this way, Kevin, but I do, and it is like visceral and eats me up. I go to bed every night so frustrated that the story hasn't come out. That
Oh.
I haven't found a way. I mean, I really go to bed with it's so like, ugh, it drives me nuts because I know it's mine for a reason.
Right. Yeah, so that makes sense. To me, it's not that active, it's not that present. And I think it's because in my life, I don't make it that present. It's something that I don't ignore. It's something I can't do anything about. And so it kind of just lives. And so for me, I'm so used to, I mean, Amy knows me so well. I'm like so not a victim mentality. I take the blame for for everything. So
for that demon in me?
yeah. So for me, yes, I outcast. For me, it's I think it's just a reflection of how I deal with it in my regular life. So my stand-up has become a reflection of my perspective on my life. And like I wish I wish so much I didn't want to do comedy. I wish so hard I was just a normal, regular 9 to 5 guy. I've always like fantasized about that, but I know it's not what I want. And so I don't. So my stand-up has been about being, and this is just for my mental perspective, an above average mental thinker of how to relate normal things to regular people. So that's like what my stand-up is like this regular life that I live in the woods now. My wife and I have a house where I'm looking at hay in my yard right now. Which is like, if you know anything about me, you'd be like, what did you kill someone? What is this? For me, it's like
you do landscape a lot.
I do landscape a lot. I really do. I've had 32 jobs in my life that none of which I've paid taxes for. So for me, it's like I have this desire just to be a normal, regular person. That's just how I see myself, and I like it. And so I like normal life. I like just regular. Like I live in a small town. I was just talking to someone at a deli at the end of my block. Kid grew up in this town. I'm raising a kid in this town. I'm asking him all these questions about growing up, but it's so small. Everyone knows each other. I was just an old man that looked like he's hitting on a young kid at a deli. Like that's the shit that I
dream.
Right. Also, his number is 6. So for me, like that's where my stand-up comes from. Is like explaining that to other people that want to live normally and just come and be entertained for a night. It's like I can't help but be this person, but I can talk about wanting to be the same person as you, having the same experience. I just know how to relate it to you because I've been doing this for a long time and my brain won't shut the fuck up. And that's really, I guess, where I see. So the muscle thing, the comic in me feels like I should be honest with the audience because I'm honest about everything else. But the person in me I don't think I'll let myself have that, or I don't think I'll make myself do that, I should say, because it doesn't affect my life besides just how I physically feel at the end of the day sometimes. So it's not this outward projection of like, you got to figure it out. For me, I go, if I figure it out and it comes out in a way that it makes sense for me, cool. But I've tried to force it, and that feels worse than not saying it. So I'd rather just, if it happens, it happens, let it happen.
Makes sense. All right. We have reached the end. Does anyone have final thoughts, feelings, admonishments, warnings, anything like that?
Don't do this.
Do it. I tell everyone to do it.
I think when it
tell
comes to
everyone not
looking
to.
when it comes to looking for classes, there is a mentality within the comedy community that you, like you, Kevin was saying before, that you just shouldn't do it. But in any other entertainment realm, there's classes. Actors that are working in films and television are constantly taking classes. It is an art form, so it's subjective. There is no black and white answer. You know what I mean? There's no do these things, check these boxes, and you're going to be Kevin Hart. You know what I mean? So it is subjective, but any perspective, whether it's a good class or a bad class, you know what I mean? You're going to get perspective from that. So always look at that in that way, I think. So when you are shopping around for classes, first things first, are you in a place where you're working with other people that are doing the same thing? You know what I mean? And just kind of like really also too, what comics are you watching? Like what comedy is making you want to do this? What is it in you that's making you want to do this? And really kind of follow your instincts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the thing I'm most proud of is that my first and second generation of students are now doing spots around the city. And that's very cool to see. To be on a show where like a previous person is doing checks or is doing 5 minutes or guest spots, or I mean even like, you know, full-time spots, is like that's a cool thing to see. That was like when I really started feeling old, when it was like there's like a showcase of like 3, you know, former students. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing?
Yeah, I think just look for someone with integrity. Like I tell people, oh, I'm not going to be, if people reach out to me for private classes, and if they only write and no judgment, but if they only write like filthy jokes, I tell them I'm not going to be able to help you. Like your money, I don't care about your money. I cannot help certain, because my brain doesn't work that way. And I think yeah, just to what Candi said, every other profession takes classes. Had I not taken classes when I started, I wouldn't know where to aim. You know, I'm like an ADD person that kind of needs a class to go like, let me try to focus all that energy. Right. And so for me, I needed classes.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. This has been delightful. Thank you for sharing your knowledge so freely as you do with your classes. And yeah. Woo.